Adam Eve, or Samantha Wilkins, is one of the most interesting characters in the world of Invincible. In a world where everyone operates in the gray, Samantha is the one character who has a set moral code, yet fails to achieve it time and time again. Yet, even though she has the best intentions out of all the characters in Invincible, she's also still a very flawed person, which makes her duality so interesting to watch. All of this, plus how she keeps getting beaten down, and with us getting part 2 of Season 2 today. Finally, let's take a look at the harsh truth of Adam Eve. Since birth, Eve has had a troubled life. She was created to be a weapon, her mother died during childbirth, and she was being hunted from before she even left the womb, and her chance of escape was narrow. And yet, Samson found a couple whose child had just died, and he switched the babies. While this may have saved Samantha, it also tormented her to a life where she would need to subdue her gifts in order to satisfy her parents. But yet, while we see that Eve loves her parents, she never makes an effort to conform with their wishes. No matter how much I hate the dad, and even the mom to some extent, they are right by saying that Eve never really made an effort. She's a science whiz, but she doesn't care about any other subject, and so she just doesn't do them. She has the potential to be the prodigy, but doesn't have the drive to take the extra step to get there. Samantha lives inside her own mind in large part due to her powers. She can see the anatomical composition of everything around her, and I'm sure that must be very overwhelming for a child. That could explain why she draws the molecules over and over or creates them with Lego bricks. She has so much information in her head, and at that young age, she can't do anything else but think about it and create them over and over to try to get rid of those thoughts, but they still come because matters everywhere. But I think the first big tragedy in Sam's life is losing her only friend. Eve discovers her powers one day, and after quickly figuring them out, due to her knowledge of science, which comes from the powers, she shows them off to her one and only friend. But due to a mix of a bunch of bad factors, her going a bit too far, her friend being scared, she scares the friend, to a point of the friendship being cut off. The other girl won't even acknowledge Sam's presence in the future, even when they will be waiting at the same bus stop, which is so horrible. The scene was a tragedy because the only person who ever accepted Eve for being herself up to this point didn't accept this change, a change Eve never asked for. She turned her back on her, leaving her more alone than ever. And due to lackluster academic performance, Eve is forced to go to public school. At the same time, though, she's starting to experiment more and more with her powers when she finds two thieves. She traps them, but the big takeaway of this experience is that Eve officially meets Samson, the person who created her to be the way that she is. He explains to her her backstory, though hides the truth about Sam's real mother being a homeless person bribed by lending her money to give her body for Eve. Later, Eve also meets Kilcannon and easily defeats him, and then she once again meets Samson, but then this all culminates with Eve meeting Phase 2, 3, 4, and 5. Her siblings, who somehow had a life worse off than her. They've spent their life hearing about how perfect Eve was, and they want to do nothing more than to kill her and die trying. Eve starts by destroying them without compassion, but by the end she realizes how truly horrible what she's doing is, but by that time it's too late. As the last of her siblings fade from existence, she can do nothing more than embrace her brother. And the worst part is, Eve's life, as we've covered, isn't that great. Her parents haven't been that supportive, no one understands her, so while she may be free, her life is far from perfect, which they think, and that divide just makes it all the more painful. And after this, when the government reclaims her, she sees her mother being used as a lab rat. A fight breaks out, and then Samson, plus her mother, die. In the span of a few hours, all of Eve's family dies, or at least the family that she cares about. So, as the episode ends, Eve fantasizes about how much better her life could have been if she was with her mother, her siblings, Samson, and was accepted. I've heard Adam Eve's special called Filler, but it tells us so much about the character and contextualizes her decisions in season 1 and 2, and I think it is essential to understanding her character and why she works so well and makes her better in retrospect. When we see her life once more in season 2, Samantha is on the teen team and in relationship with Rex Plode. I find it all a big leap from where we see Eve in her special, but I think thematically it really works. Eve has lost all the family which she fantasizes would accept her, so when she found a group of super teens to feel accepted, she would immediately join it. With Rex, since she has been told how bad she is at everything by her parents, how horrible she is, all of that, she would throw herself to the first person who seemed to show her affection, which happened to be Rex. And with the teen team, although many problems would later ensue, it caused Eve to become a much more confident person and into the one of the most popular kids at her high school. And then she meets Mark Grayson. Mark is an overall positive figure in her life, but it marked a pivotal turning point where a bunch of things were about to go down which would change her forever. First of all is Rex. Eve gets cheated on by Rex with a fellow team member, Duplicate. While it is a horrible situation, it acts sort of as a new awakening for Eve. She's grown comfortable on the super team fighting bad guys, thinking that super people are good people. But with Rex, she finally realizes that superhumans don't have it better than regular people. They can still be mean and cruel, something that Omni-Man will later reinforce with his betrayal and his massacre. So after much time of Eve romanticizing over family she will never get to have, and trying to make up for it with the team, Rex cheating on her was sort of a rude awakening, which we see developed throughout the rest of the season. But before we get to the final stage of Eve's journey, if you could take the moment to subscribe, it would mean the world to me. I'm getting really close to monetization, and it would help me so much so I can make sustainably bigger and better videos. So a subscription would be very much appreciated. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed. Thank you for everyone who's watching, but let's keep going. The final stage of Eve's journey is the purge of her relationships and the rebirth of herself. Eve's ever-growing tenuous relationship with her parents is being pushed to the limits, which ends with Eve running away from home. Eve has become fed up with becoming a crime-fighting superhero, as that life is filled with just as much pain and suffering as in her normal life, so she decided to dedicate herself to becoming a social worker and making change, which actually is important. And once again, at the start of this new phase, things are looking good. She's a lot happier, she's spending time with the people that care about her, and she's making the world a better place with plenty of projects fueled by her infinite power. But in season 2 of Invincible, the most recent stage of Eve's life once more faces trouble. Eve hears complaints about an abandoned lot in the area affected by Omni-Man's rampage and cuts through the red tape, creating this beautiful park for the community and doing a nice thing. The problem is that the reason the city never built on that empty lot is because it was located on top of a sinkhole. Luckily, no one dies, but the community is worse off than before, and Eve's dad is quick to rub it in her face. And finally, in Season 2, Episode 4, Eve faces off against Kill Cannon once more. A villain she easily defeated as a child, and Mark did on his first mission. But she is so fueled by rage at everyone from everything that's happened to her. She gets lost in the thrill of the fight and nearly loses, plus she injures 2 civilians, elderly civilians at that, and they could have easily died. And it's so tragic to see that once again she falls back to her past stage of superhero fighting, even though she knows that she doesn't like it, because she's using it to cope. She's using the fighting and violence to cope from her horrible life. She still lacks so much in her story, but where she ends in the most recent episode does an amazing job at bringing her story full circle from the once hopeful girl in the Adam Eve special to the traumatized, broken teen that we see here. Another one of the most interesting characters in Invincible has to be Debbie, and somehow I think she has an even more tragic journey. To learn more, make sure to check out this video.